Hey everyone, Joe Waxman here. Today I want to talk about Jupiter. Jupiter in your chart. I'm not going to do a chart reading this morning. I'm just going to talk about Jupiter, what Jupiter means, what a good Jupiter means, what a bad Jupiter means, what Jupiter means in different signs and different houses. We're just going to do a brief run through down the whole, all the possibilities, all the basic ones anyway. So Jupiter is the guru, it's the teacher, it's our faith, our optimism, our understanding, our connection to the big picture, the divine, God, spirituality, religion, philosophy, the higher mind, higher thinking. Jupiter is the great expansive gas giant, and it's the great benefic. Good Jupiter will give you a very big picture about life in general. Even a bad Jupiter will give you a big picture about something not very big, you know, potentially, like if that's what you're doing in life, if that's what you're focused on. Like if you have a Jupiter and Mercury or Jupiter and Mercury, Jupiter and Gemini or Virgo, and you are doing something like you're a writer, it'll give you philosophy, big picture about writing. So it just won't give you the big picture about the big picture. I like to think of Jupiter as the intelligence because, you know, Mercury I consider intellect, and I like to differentiate intelligence with intellect. Intellect is what most people are consider to be smart, right? Like you go get your PhD, whatever, you're a scientist or a doctor or this or that, and you read a billion books and you know you teach and all that, and you're very clever and have a very, you know, sharp critical thinking brain. Intelligence is something completely different. Intelligence does not involve education. You could be a simple farmer and have intelligence. It's more on the lines of wisdom. Intelligence will give you the, like I said, the big picture of life, the philosophy, the wisdom, the, and this is kind of the reason, like if you look at the exaltation, Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. So it's like wisdom from the heart. That's why Jupiter exalts in Cancer, because Cancer represents the heart, the nourishment of the heart, the wisdom, the heart heartiness, you know, caring for others, caring for your children, being motherly. And so the heartfelt wisdom is very alive with Jupiterian wisdom. Wisdom or intelligence is intellect would be like, you know, modern medicine, making all these pills and extracts and things of that nature, like, you know, injections and whatnot. And wisdom is knowing that we don't, or intelligence is knowing that we don't need those things except in rare cases. You know, natural health will provide the best health. I mean, I'm living proof of that. I don't have health insurance. I don't go see a doctor. I know that health is natural, and my health is good. I don't need any of that. And, you know, I know plenty of people who follow a similar path. Anyway, so that's more along the signs, the line, sorry, getting my words twisted, lines of what Jupiter is. Yeah, so it's our connection to the God, the divine. It gives understanding, philosophy, abundance. It gives teaching ability. It shows how we can teach or what areas we can teach in. Counseling. It's a very generous planet, especially when in good dignity. It also deals with excess and wealth and growth and expansion and contentment. It's not like Venus is our joy, right? Venus is our like daily joy, the things that we really enjoy doing. But Jupiter is our sort of deeper contentment with life in a bigger picture. Like Venus is a little bit smaller. It's like, oh, I really enjoy, my coffee in the morning. That gives me a lot of joy. Jupiter is like what keeps us out of like, suicidal depression, because we have faith. Like when things get difficult, your Jupiter's tested. Your Venus is not tested so much. Your Jupiter's really tested when things get difficult, because that's your connection to God or the divine. It's your connection to meaning in life. Jupiter gives meaning to life, gives life a good essential quality, right? So Jupiter is very important because it gives us the heart, right? Like the like you could think about like Rocky or something, and like an old boxing movie where like, the kid's got heart. That's very Jupiterian. That's a Jupiter quality, when you talk about like somebody having heart. It could be other things. It could just be a good quality moon as well, dignified moon. But often it's very Jupiterian because it's that faith. And when things get difficult, you still feel, you can still find optimism in life and meaning and something to hold on to. Without that, when Jupiter is not in good dignity, people have struggled with the meaning of life. They struggle with pain and suffering. They struggle with what's the point of being here? What is, I don't believe in God. I don't believe in anything. I don't believe in the divine. It brings out the atheist. Or if somebody is still religious and they have a Jupiter that's not dignified, their religion's not going to be very big or evolved. Or if they're philosophical, it's not going to be big or evolved. It's going to be very like, contracted, and depression will easily set in. Their intelligence, their wisdom will not be very developed. They'll, these could be the people who can easily develop an overly materialistic view of life, or if they're religious, it could be on the very fundamentalist side of religion. You see this all in every religion. You'll see it, and it makes me wonder, like, how people are not being logical to put these pieces together. They look just like the other fanatics that they think are like horrible. Like whether it's Christian fanatics, Muslim fanatics, Jewish fanatics, any kind of fanatic, right? These fundamentalists are, my beliefs are the right beliefs and all the other beliefs are the wrong beliefs. That's not a good Jupiter. I mean, because you're just sounding like exactly like all the rest of the fundamentalists. It's zero difference. It doesn't matter whether you say it's this religion, that religion. It's fundamentalism. It's a very low. It's not an evolved Jupiter. An evolved Jupiter understands that there are different expressions of the truth, and if you grew up in a different culture, you're obviously going to have a different conditioning and a different way of understanding it. There's not one way. It's a very small Jupiter. There's only one way, and this is the way, and I have the way. My particular, I won the lottery. I was born in the right culture that conditioned me to believe in the one right thing in the whole universe, and everyone else is wrong. Like, golly, that's really low. That's small mind. What it says is, what it's really about is just cultural conditioning, and that's, get beyond your cultural conditioning. A good Jupiter will allow you to see beyond your cultural conditioning and realize that we're all just repeating. I was born speaking English, and I was born speaking not only English, American English and Philadelphia English, but I don't go around being like, whoever doesn't speak my language and sound like me is wrong. Like, it's just ignorant, right? But that's exactly what these fundamentalists are doing. Whoever doesn't believe in what I believe is wrong. Whoever wasn't conditioned to, have the the stories and the religion and the ideology that I have exactly like I have it is wrong. That's a weak Jupiter, and it leads to depression, lack of faith, rigid fundamentalism, dogmatism, small-mindedness, you know, suicidal tendencies because they can't find any meaning in life, or homicidal, psychopathic. Right? Good Jupiter connects you to the divine and to the spirit and to the whole of humanity, makes us human, right? The heart is what makes us human, and that's why Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. So good Jupiter is very important for our connection to the divine in life, right? I've already said that, but like just keeping us out, giving life meaning, you know, like these old stories of like man climbing to the mountaintop, meeting God. What's the meaning of life? I mean, it's so generic. I mean, there's no meaning of life if you want to like put it in those terms. We give meaning to life through our innate ability to understand what life is. Right? We create our own meaning through our own development, through our own consciousness. So, yeah. All right. So, you know, that's a good and bad Jupiter. A bad Jupiter is good for applying, you know, if it's not dogmatic. Like there's different, like some people will take a bad Jupiter and make it bad. Other people will take an undignified Jupiter and make it good, because they'll just use it for what it's good for. It's good for small things, you know. Steve Martin made a philosophy out of comedy because he had Jupiter, I think it was in Gemini, Jupiter in Gemini. I mean, it's you know, because it is one of the it is the third air triplicity, so it has some dignity. Let's go through the signs. The Jupiter in Aries. Well, Jupiter is the third triplicity of fire signs, so it has some dignity. It's not undignified. Jupiter in Aries can be very inspirational because Aries, it's that fire, that spark, that initiating fire. So these people can they like to set up Jupiterian things. They are just go-getters as far as like if they're a teacher, then they're just like setting up, they're starting like they always want to like, let's set up a new teaching project, let's do this, and then they'll just teach, and they'll be very inspiring. These can be inspirational teachers. These can be inspirational speakers, depending on what house, right? And it depends where Mars is, how dignified their Mars is. But it's not a bad Jupiter. It's these can be leaders too. These can be very fiery people with a lot of potent inspirational wisdom. Preachers, something like that. You know, they're just not afraid to say what they need to say. Talk about, like, you know, just be very Aries about their wisdom, their truth, their understanding of God, right? Just shout it out. Unafraid, bold, big Aries. Jupiter in Taurus. This is where my Jupiter is. Jupiter in Taurus is very practical wisdom, right? Wisdom that is very easy to understand, number one, because Taurus likes to take all the complex things and make them very simple. So Taurus can really break down things into its most common denominator, its simplest form. So very practical wisdom, very natural wisdom around food, also around wealth and finances. These could be like, you know, your economic gurus or health gurus, just practical wisdom teachers, right? Just good teachers in general, because of that ability, because Taurus, in its simplicity, can explain things to a child. And Einstein said, if you cannot, and I'm paraphrasing and probably butchering it, I hope not, but if you can't explain something simply, then you don't really understand it. Taurus is slow to learn. That's on the downside, that's on the negative. But once they learn something, they really understand it in very very fully and in simple terms that everyone can understand. So it has a pretty mass appeal with Jupiter and Taurus. Right. Yeah. Jupiter in Gemini. Jupiter is opposite its rulership, so it's in detriment here. Jupiter in Gemini does struggle with the big picture because Gemini is so intellectual. So they are going to struggle with God and spirituality. They're going to struggle with depression and having a big picture in life. Doesn't mean they can't get there, but it's going to take some work. All these things are not written in stone. We're born, this is, our astrology chart is a snapshot of our soul's growth when we're born. It's not where we end up. We can change these things. Our soul is here to grow. We're here to grow. We're here to learn. This is where you started. It's not where you're finished. So you can evolve beyond your natal chart. That's really important to understand for everyone. And in fact, that's the whole point of it. We have to evolve beyond our natal chart. We have to grow from our natal chart. That's just the starting point, not the end point. But Jupiter in Gemini does struggle with the big picture. Gemini is like, ruled by Mercury. It's the intellect. It's not Jupiterian wisdom. It's not the big picture. It's the smaller mind, the intellectual mind. So yeah, that's an issue. Jupiter is the third air triplicity, so it does have some dignity. And Jupiter and Gemini can be great at having like a philosophy for Gemini things, like a writing philosophy, or being able to. Another way to see Jupiter is the thing that allows us to see the forest through the trees, right? So whatever you apply your Jupiter to, it'll help you see the forest through the trees. In other words, the big picture, and having a big understanding of that topic. So like any Gemini things, writing, communication, skills of the hands, a lot of anything to do with the hands, right? So Muhammad Ali had Jupiter and Gemini. And when he was young, he did struggle with religion. Like he was religious, but his religion was kind of dogmatic early on. Then he changed and became much more inclusive, right? But that's Jupiter and Gemini starting now. But with the hands, right? The hands, Jupiter and Gemini is great because Jupiter can be a physical planet. It could also be like a coach if it's related to like sports things. But like Jupiter and Gemini will just be like, it can be masterful with the hands. Because Jupiter is that intelligence. So like very intelligent with the hands, like whatever you're doing. Like he was a boxer, so his hands were very intelligent, right? But if you're a writer or guitar player, massage therapist, right? All those things can benefit from Jupiter and Gemini. Jupiter in Cancer is exalted, right? So the heart wisdom here is very elevated. These people are very caring, very nurturing, very generous, and wanting to help people. These can be like you're really loving people, really caring in all different kinds. It could be a nurse, or it could be some kind of caretaker, or it could be just a teacher who really loves people. Teacher, counselor, therapist. Could be in the realm of psychology, or just a mother, or anyone who's just in a field where they're helping people. Being very generous and loving and caring towards people, or teaching about compassion, things of the heart, healing, heart wisdom. And of course, you always have to look at the ruler, with each one. So with Jupiter and Aries, you look at Mars. With Jupiter and Taurus, you look at Venus. With Jupiter in Gemini, you look at Mercury. With Jupiter in Cancer, you look at Moon. And Jupiter in Leo. Jupiter again rules the fire triplicity, so it does have some dignity here. Jupiter in Leo is going to be very creative, very heartfelt again, because both the sun and the moon relate to the heart. The sun is a very generous and warm-hearted. Leo is very warm-hearted and generous sign, right? Very big-hearted, very tons of ego and pride, and but Jupiter and Leo will be very creative. They can teach the arts, teach creativity. They can be involved in, philanthropy and giving, anything having to give to others and helping others, because of that warmth, that generosity that comes from Leo. They can be, on stage in front of the camera. They can teach things like acting, or like any creative field, entertainment. They can be involved in sports as well. These could be coaches. Jupiter and Aries can be a coach. That'll make a great coach as well. Jupiter in any fire sign, because of leadership ability. There's strong teaching and leadership ability. And all the general Leo things will be expanded. Jupiter in Virgo is again in detriment. And so these are similar to Jupiter in Gemini. Can be easily depressed, have a hard time with God, with philosophy, with religion. Difficulty understanding the meaning in life, too caught up in their head. Intelligence, right, is a hard thing, right? Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. Again, Virgo, Gemini are too caught up in their head, especially Virgo, well, both of them. I mean, they both have such active minds. It's just turning. Virgo is the real warrior out of the bunch. But Jupiter in Virgo can be very service oriented. They can be health teachers. They can be, herbal teachers, or just academic teachers. They can be lawyers, anything that involves sort of an analytical, critical, Virgo type stuff. They'd be excellent at, because now they're becoming very big-minded about Virgo type things, right? So like academia, these can make great academics, great any kind of analyst, anything involving health, doctors, potentially lawyers, any of those, high-level studies, they could be really, really good at. And that Jupiter would help them have a really understanding big picture about that field, right? The problem comes with when they're trying to understand life as a whole, or the universe as a whole, God, spirituality, religion, philosophy, that sort of thing. And then, of course, you'd look towards Mercury, wherever Mercury is. And Jupiter in Gemini is slightly better because of the triplicity rule, because it's air, than Jupiter in Virgo. So, of course, you also have to look at the bounds. Maybe it's in the bounds of Jupiter or the moon, in which case it'll do better. Jupiter in Libra, so it's in air bounds as well, or air triplicity. It's an air triplicity ruler. So that gives it some dignity. Jupiter in Libra can be like a lawyer. They are very fair-minded, a judge. Trade, business, relationships, relationship counselor. You know, a business mentor, business guru, business teacher, diplomat, diplomacy, anything like that, anything involving Libran things, obviously, they will be very good at, very big-minded, very could be, you know, quite successful in those areas. Can make really good relationships because they'll have a lot of intelligence about how to relate to people, right? So, you know, even difficult relationships, they might be very wise about, you know, how to create harmony. So they can be like group leaders and things like that. Jupiter in Scorpio. Jupiter in Scorpio is difficult because everything is difficult in Scorpio, because Scorpio is a difficult sign. Scorpio deals with that internal war. But Jupiter in Scorpio can be excellent therapists, psychologists, occultists, occult teachers. They can really bring a lot of wisdom and intelligence into the secrets of life. Excellent at astrology, understanding. See, this is just before Sagittarius. It's the understanding that leads to Sagittarius. So they're going to dive into the mysteries, and they're going to get into that spiritual realm that precedes an understanding of God. So it's like the occult level of things, the hidden qualities, the astrology, the psychology, the you know, power and control, death and rebirth and crisis. And there could be a lot of that even, but Jupiter will protect, will help, because Jupiter is a great benefic. So it's going to soften the blow of those scorpionic things and reduce them. It's going to help all of that, make it better, make it easier to deal with. But there could be a lot of really good understanding in the terms of the secrets of life, right? Of course, this could be more. This could be having to deal with you know, they could be involved in oil or gems, or like digging beneath the ground and like you know, mining. You know, maybe if some other planets were there. But yeah, I mean, this could be a sex therapist as well, and just a general psychologist, like I said. Jupiter in Sagittarius. Now these are going to be Jupiter's the strongest in Sagittarius and Pisces. So this could be the real like philosopher, real religious type, real spiritual type, the person with the great faith in the universe, in God, in the connection to their divine, the divine. These can be actual literal philosophers, or you know, college professors, very high-minded, taking education to the PhD level, PhD graduates who go on to teach, you know, higher levels, you know, studies in universities. These are people with just great faith, no matter what they do, you know, no matter how hard things get, they know that life is good. And even when there's no hope, they have faith, they have optimism. They're not going to get depressed easily. They're just going to have a great connection to God, to the divine, to faith, to wisdom, to intelligence, to higher mindedness, to philosophy. It's very one-sided in that way. It's not like, you know, dynamic, but it is very strong. It's just that energy is contained there. You don't have to look, well, where's the ruling planet? The ruling planet is in its own sign. The energy is staying there, contained. Jupiter in Capricorn, again, this is debilitated, so because it's opposite Cancer. Jupiter in Capricorn is going to have the same problems. They're going to be too materialistic. They're going to get depressed easily. They're going to be atheists. They're not going to believe in God. Or if they believe in God, it's going to be very fundamentalist. You know, these are your religious fundamentalists. Or agnostics, or some very twisted belief that could be, you know, even racist, because they believe in something very twisted, very low intelligence, not very evolved. On the good side, they can be excellent at business. They could be very motivated in business. They could be successful in business. Yeah, they could, you know, and that's what they're going to value. That's what they're going to appreciate. And they're probably going to have a very great philosophy about business, about being, you know, okay, I keep saying business, but it could be more like, you know, climbing their way up the corporate ladder, right? Or investments, anything having to do with worldly success, material success, you know, how to, you know, how to grow and save your wealth, how to become more popular and successful and famous, and all this, you know, very practical wisdom that is geared towards materialism, that sort of thing. If you want a materialism guru, Jupiter and Capricorn. Jupiter in Aquarius. Again, an air sign, so it has some dignity. And in esoteric astrology, Jupiter is said to rule Aquarius. Now, Aquarius is more high-minded, so I don't mind Jupiter in Aquarius as much, because now philosophy, wisdom, intelligence is going into Aquarian things, which are society. So it's thinking about society. It's thinking outside the box. It's thinking it's being very original, unique, scientific. I forgot to mention Jupiter and Capricorn could be very scientific as well. Jupiter Aquarius can be very scientific, very technological oriented. They might believe in technology. On the low end, they might be transhumanists because of that faith. Their faith is going into Aquarian things, which are, you know, can be like dystopian and transhumanist, the head without the body, that sort of thing, robotics, everything technological, computers, science. These could be, if other factors support it, these could be like, you know, communists, right, or socialists, or fascists, because they're thinking about all of society with a philosophy, and if other factors are twisting it, making it negative, then it'll go down that negative path and become quite negative. It could have a whole big, you know, like, I don't know if Karl Marx had Jupiter and Aquarius, but that sort of thing, like, or communist leader, communist in general, or, you know, that sort of thing, revolutionaries, right? They're thinking about society, but something's twisted, so it's not going in the right direction. It's going towards the negative side of things. But on the positive side of things, it could also be, you know, thinking about like how to create a utopian society where it benefits everyone, not just the people in power and the elites, you know. And that, you know, some foolish people think that that's what communism is, that's what socialism. It's not. No. No, but we can have utopian civilization where the power is not concentrated with the politicians, you know, where they take all the money and everyone else is a slave, which is what socialism and communism does. But there can be equality, and, you know, in the best way, in the best sense, you know, because people have to, you know, not everyone's equal. We're all different. We're all unique. And well-developed Jupiter and Aquarius would take that into account. Some people are just going to bust their butt and have tremendous skills and produce a lot of value. And of course, they should have the benefits from the value that they create, because that's just where they are. We're all at different places, soul evolutionary wise. And people who create a lot of value need to receive the benefits from their creations. It's just natural. It's the way it goes. You reap what you sow. It's the law of life. If you're not sowing anything, then you really don't get much in return. But we can create a system that encourages and enables people to do better and to do well, and gives them lots of opportunities, and pushes them and gives them all the tools that they need to succeed in life. It's not what we're doing now, not at all. It's quite the opposite. They are making it very, very difficult for people to succeed. Incredibly difficult. I mean, they're actively stamping out small businesses. We're living in very dark times, very negative times. So anyway, Jupiter in Aquarius could go both ways. Depends where Saturn is, depends where Uranus is, and depends on the rest of the chart. Now, Jupiter in Pisces, these are going to be very spiritual people. Very creative, very imaginative. These could be spiritual teachers. These could be religious teachers. These could be creative teachers. Creative types in general. It could be they could be in film, photography, anything where there's creativity, the arts. It could be dancers, because Pisces rules the feet. Anything that involves creativity, imagination, spirituality, mystics, gurus, or they could be religious. These could be monks or nuns, people living in monasteries, things like that. Also look at Neptune for this one. But they're going to have great faith, great connection to God, very active imagination, potentially great wisdom, potentially delusional, depending on other factors, because there's always that risk with Pisces. Great delusion. It could be very psychic as well, depending on other factors. Now, if Jupiter is in the first house, this gains a lot of directional strength. Jupiter in the first house will create a teacher, or somebody who's just has this larger than life personality. I've heard it say that it can enlarge the body, but I've witnessed, I've seen charts where that's not true. These are just like huge people, like figures, like they're energetically, not their body, just their being. They're just like huge, they're massive people, massive individuals, right? Jupiter is very strong in the first house. You create a lot of wisdom, a lot of success, just people, huge individual. In the second house, creates abundance, wealth, resources. These people always have luck when it comes to wealth and resources. They have a way of, amassing large amounts of money. And even if they don't, it just seems like they're always well taken care of. It can also create a lot of knowledge. These can be also teachers, great speakers and teachers, because the voice, second house, actors, singers, and just people who just have tons of information, because the second house is where we keep our resources, but also our intellectual resources, so knowledge, like encyclopedia. These are the encyclopedia brains. Also very expanded, healthy, with also obviously in any house depends on the dignity of Jupiter, but can be very big self-worth, very big sense of self-worth, big and generous, like warm, involved. They're very generous with themselves. In the third house, the intellect, obviously, and skills of the hands. These can be great writers, teachers, expression people in acting or music, anything with skills or expression, speaking, communications. Yeah, all the third house significations, intellect, media personalities, things of that nature. Jupiter in the fourth house is also quite good. Gives a very big house. These people can have lovely, luxurious, big, grand houses. Happy at home, teaching at home. Home is going to become, a place of where they feel content. They get a lot of, because like the optimism, the faith, the Jupiter, the generosity is all at home. So it's in a sense similar to Moon in the fourth house or Venus in the fourth house. They get a lot out of being at home. Real estate potential is there. Also, fourth house can deal with politics because of the homeland, right? When you're representing the homeland, then you often see that with politicians. Somebody who really is generous towards their own country, towards their own people, wants to give back to their own people. Jupiter in the fourth. Jupiter in the fifth. Great for entertainment. Great for, I forgot to mention, Jupiter is also husband for women and children in general. So Jupiter in the fifth can mean, a teacher to children, or having lots of children, abundance with children, abundance of children. Entertainment, an entertainer, somebody who plays a lot of games, somebody who's very creative and is involved in the arts, and a performer, anything like that. Speculative investor, very big education, general education, spiritual practices also. All those things will be expanded. Jupiter in the sixth house. This can be like a mediator, somebody who's like a lawyer or an arbitrator, or somebody who resolves disputes. Because Jupiter is very generous, it's benefic. So it's going to take the combative nature of the sixth house and try and create harmony there. But it can be a fighter, especially if it's not in good dignity. It can be somebody who's very combative, fighting, but in a Jupiterian way. I guess they'll be able to Jupiter's still Jupiter, no matter what sign. It's still, tries to bring out benefit qualities to its sign and placement. This can be somebody who is excellent at like editorial, managerial, critical type things, like in the workplace, in the mundane life, cooking as well. Can be a great chef. They could be, working in an office as a manager, or any higher up position, things of that nature. Service to others. They could be very service oriented. Yeah, this could be a placement where somebody likes to volunteer and help other people in that way because of service to others. So Jupiter in the seventh house is where I have my Jupiter. Now, this also makes good teachers, good counselors, good therapists, because it's involving relationships. Similar to Jupiter in the first, but it needs to be activated by other people. Jupiter in the seventh can be a lawyer. It can provide a very Jupiterian partner, husband, wife, or it can provide a very Jupiterian, like a teacher, a guru, a spiritual teacher even. You can bring that to you. You can have a spiritual teacher with Jupiter in the seventh. But your partner can be very Jupiterian, very wise, intelligent, generous, giving, or you can be that way to others. Jupiter in the eighth can create big inheritance. You can be very lucky with shared resources. You know, you can win the lottery with Jupiter in the eighth. You could be very generous with others, like really giving towards others in a more intimate way. This could be a sex therapist. This could be a financial guru. So shared resources. They could be into finance, economics. Jupiter in the second could also be economics, but Jupiter in the eighth could as well. Tax, CPA or like tax teacher, somebody who teaches about taxes. An occultist, an astrologer, sexual healing. I don't know why that's funny, but yeah. It could be involved in underground things, gems, oil. Could be very lucky in all those things. Maybe they strike oil one day. Yeah. Jupiter will protect the eighth house. Not fully. There's still going to be death and crisis, but it'll help. Jupiter in the ninth house. Religion, philosophy, adventures, big adventure, graduate school, PhDs, lawyers, very high level studies, preachers, priests, rabbis, gurus. All the Jupiter things will be enhanced with Jupiter in the ninth house. A lot of faith and optimism, potentially, especially if it's in good dignity. Again, you have to look at the dignity. Love to travel to foreign lands, foreign destinations, take vacations, go on adventure, things of that nature. Teach about philosophy, go on religious pilgrimages, right? Go on a holy trek to wherever. I guess Jerusalem or Mecca or wherever your holiest land is, wherever it is, some mountain somewhere, some shrine, some temple, some lake in the wilderness. I don't know. Anyway, monasteries. Jupiter in the 10th house is going to create a very big, expansive career, a lot of success. You could be known as a teacher. You could be known for being very generous, wise, intelligent, Jupiterian. You can make a career out of Jupiterian things. Yeah, I mean, this is just like, that's a very lucky position for success, for career. I don't want to say guaranteed success, but if it's in good dignity, whatever you do in life, as far as like career, you'll gain a lot of recognition for it. Easily recognized. Jupiter in the 11th. Groups and networks can be Like you can be like a leader, a teacher, groups and networks. You can have very big, expanded groups, networks, a lot of fans, very popular, career success, very, big, idealistic hope, wishes, and dreams. The philosophy will become very idealistic. So, yeah, you could really take Jupiter into the very expanded 11th house, which is thinking about society. So you become very idealistic, right? And now you're becoming social and political minded, thinking about the earth, thinking about society, thinking about how are we gonna, if it's in good dignity or bad dignity, it depends which way you're gonna go. But like again, like socialism, communism, or utopia, like really, like how are we gonna make a good earth? How are we gonna resolve the tyranny? Like hopefully it's on the good side of things. But yeah, very big minded with Jupiter, thinking philosophy is going into all of society. Big friends and networks. We've got internet groups, teaching on the internet. Could be technologically oriented. Lots of money again as well. Lots of success in career. Jupiter in the 12th house, it's sort of a lucky position. It's considered like a guardian angel watching over you. But this could be also like traveling to foreign lands for educational purposes, religious purposes, just experience, just to go on an adventure. This could be teaching in foreign lands. This could be having to do with something to do with monasteries or temples or isolated places, even prison. You could be a religious person in a monastery, like a monk or a nun, or like I said, a teacher in a foreign land, like you go to Japan and teach English or something like that. Your husband, if you're a woman, your husband could be from a foreign land. Foreign studies, foreign religion. Right? You might just like foreign cultures a lot and study foreign, like become a PhD in something foreign studies. Your religion might be from, outside of your culture, something exotic. Like if you're an American, maybe you're studying Bhakti yoga, and that becomes your religion. Or Taoism, Sikhism, something. But in general, it grants a lot of luck from the subconscious, also a very creative position. Great for any sort of creativity, acting, the arts, dancing. Good for the subconscious mind, healing for the subconscious mind, good for spirituality in general. Will protect you if you have any malefics in the 12th house, because malefics in the 12th house are very destructive, because that's your inner mind, that's your subconscious. So they're driving you towards destruction. I know I have Pluto in the 12th house, and I do not have Jupiter in the 12th house, but you have to be very careful when malefics are in the 12th house. But with Jupiter there, it'll protect you, keep you, safe. Might not be great, because then you might rely on Jupiter in the 12th to save you when you could be doing that yourself. But we all get what we need. Our chart is a reflection of that. Like I had to learn the hard way. Like I had a very destructive self-conscious mind, and I had to heal my subconscious in order to get out of that destruction, because I couldn't. You can't just stop it. You can't if you have trauma and pain that you're holding on to, and you have destructive things, planets, malefics in the 12th house, or 8th house, or 4th house. That's going to drive you to destructive things, without a doubt. It's impossible to avoid. the way to do it is to heal yourself. Then you won't be driven to destructive things. Then those malefics in the 12th house become very powerful and beneficial. They become great aids. So anyway, that was Jupiter through the signs and houses. Just a brief synopsis for each one. Hope you found it interesting and enjoyable. And hit the like button, guys. I want to get more likes. I want to get more subscribers too. So tell your friends about me. Do me a favor, and share this. Get your friends to watch this and like this and subscribe and book a reading with me. My website is macroastrology.com, or you can email me directly at macrogoldmachine@yahoo.com. And that's it for now. Leave a comment if you have anything to add, or you want to criticize me. That's totally fine too. I have a Virgo moon, so I'm just like, I'm full of criticisms of everyone. I try and keep them to myself, but I understand there's plenty to criticize about everything. So I don't mind, or I try not to. Anyway, all right, guys, that's it for now. I will see you again soon. Thanks. Bye.